Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I would like to talk to you about something that is scary, but just a little bit too late, because I'm recording this on Halloween. I didn't intend for it to be this way, I just ended up doing it because I felt bad, because I like Corpse Party, or at least I liked it, back when it was just Corpse Party and Corpse Party Book of Shadows, because they were creative, they were interesting, they were horrific in a lot of different ways, they were quite disturbing, and then the series just kind of dived off a cliff and landed headfirst in a bunch of rocks when Blood Drive came out, because Blood Drive was not scary, it was not well written, it felt like it went against everything that the series had been building up to that point, and it was just a really poorly done game in general. So I saw Corpse Party Sweet Sachiko's Hysteric Birthday Bash show up on Steam back when it originally came out, and I thought to myself, I want to play that, because I actually remember hearing about this game back when Blood Drive hadn't come out yet, and I thought to myself, I think I'd like that, I want to play that. And then after Blood Drive came out, we played through it, and it just turned out to be terrible. I thought to myself, this series is not going anywhere good. And then I kind of dropped it. And it was a thing that they didn't localize this game for years after Blood Drive came out, which is actually kind of funny for reasons which we'll get to later on in this rant. But yeah, they did eventually localize and release it. Maybe they were trying to get back some of the goodwill they lost from Blood Drive. I don't know. But, well, they did. And they released it, and I didn't buy it immediately, but then it went on sale for Halloween, and I thought to myself, you know what, let's give it a try. Surely it can't be that bad. It's bad. It's actually kind of terrible. I was hoping for something at least a little bit better, but, well, that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. I didn't finish it, so this isn't going to spoil the entire game, but I did look up, like, the endings and what in particular the game is hiding behind the sheet, and it turns out the game is actually hiding something important, but we'll get to that later on if you feel like you really want to dive into this game like several months after it came out. But yeah, so apparently this is a midquel to Corpse Party and Corpse Party Book of Shadows. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like it takes place after Book of Shadows, but anyway. So, the entire plot of this game is basically, it's Sachiko's birthday, and she wants to bring everyone together to try and make her happy, and she doesn't want to actually kill them this time, although she does actually end up killing some of them, but we'll get to that. So, she wants to have a birthday party that's hilarious, and she originally starts with wanting to do a romantic comedy. And that the entire cast, like living and dead, of Corpse Party up to the point of like Book of Shadows ends up showing up in this game in like the same place, and then they just kind of all get like split off into their own individual groups after like the first couple of events, and things just kind of fall apart from there, and it's not engaging. That is the main problem with all of the like little mini stories. It's displayed as a series of like 7 or 8 mini stories that you go through linearly, and it's just not engaging. That's the main problem with it. It's meant to be like really fan servicey, even by like Corpse Party standards, where they're constantly talking about girls doing things like lubing up their butts with lotion, and like there are multiple lesbian couples, like multiple obvious out there and very grabby lesbian couples, and yeah, the fan service in this one is just over the top, even by Corpse Party standards. They constantly have like CGs of fan service with girls grabbing each other and all of that sort of thing, and it's just like, this is Corpse Party we're talking about. We're going from some of the most well done horror in the PSP generation to this in the span of a couple of games, but I'll get to it. So we get the main plot starting off. Everybody shows up in like the auditorium of the school, and they all come together. It's everyone who's alive and dead. They're all back to the point, basically, before they go insane in the school halls. So they kind of drop in a joke or two here and there about what'll happen to these characters once they drop into the actual school once more. And there are a couple of neat jokes thrown in here and there about some of the characters, but the problem is Those are only in the first one. Every individual chapter is actually written by someone entirely different. And you can kind of tell because not only can the game not keep a consistent tone, the writers of the chapters that I got up to were way worse in their general quality of writing, and it ended up like not coming through at all. Like the translation itself seems to be on point enough. It just seems like that they really didn't have that much to work with, so it really doesn't feel that entertaining. The writing isn't very good. Sometimes the characters feel a lot less, sometimes they feel flanderized, I think is the word I'm going for here. I think they take the characters a little bit too far in like the directions that they're known for, and I don't like it. I don't think they did a very good job writing the characters at all, outside of like the first chapter where everybody seems to still be a little bit on point while not going too far in any particular flanderization direction where just it emphasizes one particular trait and just sticks with it. And as I said, the writing is not very good, and they put them in some obviously ridiculous situations, and in most situations I'd be kind of okay with it. But again, we're talking about Corpse Party, where this little girl ghost is going around killing these people in some of the most horrific ways. They play it up in some cases like really well, like how what's-his-face that's voiced by Tomokazu Sugita, whose name I can't remember, that turns into the anatomical doll. They play up him turning into like a mass murderer in some really funny ways in the first chapter, which I really appreciate. Then he just disappears from the rest of the chapters that I played. But yeah, they do a couple of neat things like that, and then the writing just gets so boring for a few chapters that I just couldn't find myself keeping up with it anymore. The game's progression is pretty simple in comparison to Corpse Party as well. It's entirely VN. Like, entirely VN. There's nothing like in Book of Shadows where you actually like wander around like just simple mazes. It's not like the actual Corpse Party where it's a full-on adventure style game where you have to do things like avoid ghosts. At most, you get a couple of decisions to make, and that's it, for the most part. And I went through the effort of seeing all the endings that I could on the chapters that I managed to get through, and none of the other endings were even, like... I mean, I guess they would be entertaining if you could see these characters as anything other than bait to be murdered by a crazy spirit girl, but some of these endings are just really disappointing. Like, as I have said before when I've talked about Corpse Party, the one thing that this game really stands out in doing is its gruesome, gory, and otherwise just sometimes even sometimes really unsettling deaths. And the thing about Sweet Sachiko's Hysteric Birthday Bash is that they've got deaths, but they're so, like, played off that it really upset me. Like, I'm not even joking. I felt so upset about this because... Again, we're talking about a series that went from some of the best deaths I've ever heard of in horror. Like, you know, my favorite example to bring up is, I think his name is Yoshikaze, the blonde-haired kid that they have in the screenshots of, the blonde-haired guy that they have in the screenshots on the Steam page. They have him being buried alive, and the sound design on it is so good. It is so chilling to hear this guy get buried alive. It legitimately sounds like he's being buried alive. In this game, there are a few deaths that happen. One is the lesbian girl who seems to die all the bloody time, Sachiko, who's probably my favorite character just because she manages to maintain her chippiness all the way up until she gets killed every single time. But she gets her head bitten off, except it doesn't really get bitten off. She just kind of gets, like, chomped. Her head disappears inside the monster that eats her, and it's just her shoulders and her body hanging there. No blood, no nothing. And then that's just it. That's how she dies. There's no fancy CG. Well, there is a CG for it. But they changed the CG so it kind of looks like it's just like a doll hanging there. Like a literal like doll like that's been sewn up. It's weird. Then there's another death that happens which has a character being torn in half by piano wire. You get to see the CG, but it's got the a character standing over the character who's just been torn in half by the piano wire, and it's just blood spreading out, and it just kind of looks like he's there, but he's just a little bit taller because it covers up the seam that he's been cut in half by. And that is also disappointing because it's nowhere near as gross as it should be. This is Corpse Party, goddammit. And there is another death later on in the last chapter that I could play through, and I'll tell you why shortly, but in this chapter, you basically have a choice, like, sorry, I'm trying to remember what the damn word is. The context is that Satoshi, the main character of basically the entire series, is basically, I'm going to give someone something that starts with a C or a K sound. First thing I thought of was cock, which is definitely not where they were going. They definitely meant kiss. But you have the opportunity to choose Sachiko as the winner of like this contest. And if you choose her, she takes you out of the room, and instead of getting a kiss, she takes a kidney. But instead of like giving you like this really close CG of her like holding a kidney, or maybe of Satoshi wandering around with a giant hole in his stomach, you don't get either of them. You just get like recycled CGs from Book of Shadows that just has her standing there. You get like one good scream and that's it. Again, they take all of the emphasis away from the gory deaths. And for a series that was previously really good at its gory deaths, it just disappoints me to no end. But yeah, as I said before, the main problem with the game is this really poor writing. The characters do interact with each other, and there are characters that are familiar with each other in multiple ways. So you do get like interactions between them that try and help you learn a little bit more about them, but the writing isn't done very well. The characters don't feel particularly fleshed out, and they don't, like, their relationships don't really seem to stick. There are just a couple of them that just like feel like they're banging their heads against the wall in terms of actually trying to provide any sort of depth, nuance, or otherwise likability to some of these characters. And a lot of them are characters you've already seen before, because if you've played any of the Corpse Party games, a lot of these characters will be familiar to you. Although they do recommend that you play Corpse Party, and Corpse Party Book of Shadows at the very least. Although there is one character who I would like to talk about now. Actually, there's two, but we'll get to that. Here's the thing. So, in the screenshots, they give you this white-haired girl, this blonde-haired girl, and her purple-haired friend, and they're both wearing this white uniform. And the game literally out and out says, during like the prologue of the game, you don't know who these people are unless you've already played Blood Drive, right? I thought to myself, okay, that's reasonable. The Japanese release dates of these games actually put the Hysterical Birthday Bash after Corpse Party and Corpse Party Book of Shadows. So this might have been trying to drum up some hype for Blood Drive, right? With that said, I couldn't remember who this person was at all. I have played through Blood Drive. I have an entire rant on the game on my channel that you can go and listen to, and I do not remember this character at all. Not one, like, brain cell, not one iota. These two characters are just like nothing to me, and this is kind of bad because the entire purpose of Hysterical Birthday Bash is, at the end of the game, once you've beaten all the chapters, you unlock an extra chapter, which is basically these two characters' prologue before they show up in Blood Drive. And it's just like, it's laughable because I've already played through Blood Drive. I know who all the other characters are. These two draw in a complete blank. An absolute blank. And I thought to myself, as I'm going through Chapter 4 with its absolutely terrible writing, do I really want to put in the effort to go through and play the entire game to see what these two characters are and what their backstory is when I don't even remember them in the first place? The answer is obviously no. So, it's hilarious, but not in a way that the game wants it to be. It's so silly just how I've completely forgotten these two, and they're the entire point of the game. It's really, really funny to me personally. So, Chapter 4 is the one where I gave up, and I'd like to talk about it because it's literally just the game trying to throw them into the most, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Stereotypical anime fan service plots imaginable, right? It's literally strip them down to their bikinis and have him judge them while he's wearing an over-the-top king costume. then have them all dress up as nurses while, actually this one's kind of cool, while a dummy has something done to it which will eventually transfer over to the main kid himself, which is, it's kind of cool, but they do things like have his legs being broken, have him break out in a fever, stuff like that, that again, they don't do CGs for, so it's just like recycled stuff. And then the third one is literally just like dress them all up as maids and have them all do maid shit. And I literally skipped it. I went through the entire thing without even looking at the screen. I just hammered the A button because in chapter 4, the only choice that actually comes up at the end is who you want to pick as the winner. So you just go through the entire thing reading this low quality fan service, get to the end and there's just one choice. Which again works against the game's favor because as complicated as Corpse Party was, where if you did certain things out of order, the game would end on you, and going after the extra endings was actually a pretty big undertaking in and of itself. In this game, it auto-saves after every choice, but it lets you go back and do that choice. So you can just reload the chapter and make the other choice and just go if you run into an ending. So it means basically nothing to me personally, especially since all the endings I played are basically unenjoyable because, again, lack of gory deaths displayed on screen, otherwise unimpressive writing, and just not really enjoyable in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it just makes it really unenjoyable because the choices just mean basically nothing to me after a while. And I just went through all the endings and I thought to myself, that's it, I'm done. I don't want to play it anymore. The fan service is over the top and uninteresting because, well, I have watched anime. That's the thing. Like, if you have watched anime, and I'm not going to bring up any particular anime, I'm just going to say, if you have watched anime, if you can say to yourself, have I watched anime? You know what this game has got in store for you, more or less. And that's the entire problem. It's so predictable. Especially with Corpse Party. Like, a girl ending up on a wall as a gigantic blood splat that you see really early on. And you think to yourself, I wonder what that's about. Then they reveal it's a girl. Then they reveal who it is. Over the course of the game, and it's like, oh, that's gross. Oh, that's really gross. Just when it has like real, and it also turns out that another character's been like taking pictures of it, and they like completely lose their mind when they find out who it is. And it's like, oh my god, that twist is actually kind of awesome for what it does to the characters. Then you've got this game, which throws that all out the window for low quality fan service, low quality routing, and recycled CGs. Like, for the most part, they are recycling an absolute ton of stuff from Book of Shadows. I've seen a lot of stuff that shows up in Book of Shadows, and including things like character art and backgrounds and stuff like that. There's very little that feels new in this game. It feels like just kind of a sort of, we need to put something out to make money in order to get a little bit of extra budget for Blood Drive. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much exactly what it feels like. It feels like a low budget, hopefully high return option to get more money for Blood Drive. And it's not worth it. Especially these days. Like, this game came out years after Blood Drive, Corpse Party, and Corpse Party Book of Shadows did. So it has lost all relevance in its like position on the release timeline. And even then, like, if you made me go through the entirety of this after having played Corpse Party and Corpse Party Book of Shadows in order to go straight onto Blood Drive, I would put down the entire series at this point because it is just not good. It is not good at all. I really cannot stand it. Like, it's better than Blood Drive, but only due to the fact that you don't have the absolutely terrible gameplay, some of the most obscure puzzles that I've seen in puzzle games like this, and an ending which goes against the entire series. At least in this case, like, it doesn't have any of that, so it's better than Blood Drive by default, but not by much. Not by much at all. So, my entire stance on the Corpse Party series at this point is, oh yeah, I should probably say that the PC port is fine. they let you rebind the controls, there's a resolution setting, there's a couple of things like auto and skip, and they have a decent backlog, and the automatic speed and the skip speed is fine. I've got nothing wrong with either of them. So basically, like, the port is fine, and there's nothing utterly wrong with the actual, like, setup of the VN stuff itself. Like, say, Deathmark and MG, where the text speed is just that little bit too slow for me. No, it's fine. It does what it needs to just fine. But yeah, my overall standing on Corpse Party as a series remains the same as it did back when I first reviewed Blood Drive. Play Corpse Party Book of Shadows for a little bit extra if Corpse Party wasn't enough for you, but don't play the epilogue chapter Blood Drive. Don't play it. Just ignore it when you unlock it and just put the series down. That's it. You've had enough. That's pretty much it. And this is pretty much it from me. I apologize for not putting this out on Halloween, but I am recording this on Halloween, so it at least feels half decent in that sense, in my personal point of view. So, there you go. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.